Hello, everyone. This is Dhara Roberts coming to you for an inner space conversation with my wonderful friend Tien Neo Eamas. Eamas, I just clarified. Tien, we're so glad to have you here today. Happy New Year. And
Hello,
we're
yes.
plunging, we're like on the precipice. We've just shifted into flipped the page on the calendar, and we're entering the year of 2021. And as someone who Tien and I both look behind the scenes and look at the energy behind the scenes there. The This year, the 2021 year, is numerologically turns into a five, right? So two plus two plus one is a 5 year. And I've seen or like
Mhm.
been shown a lot of things through my meditations and through connecting in to the energy grids about what that 5 year might mean for us and for myself,
Mhm.
and like what I want to offer to my community and to the world. And I get a lot of pentagon, 5 pointed star, five energy. I get a lot, and it's really drawn me into exploring different languages of the five element theory. So we're going to talk about that
Mhm.
a little bit. And then metallics. I've been getting lots of like upgraded or new light codes to work with and play with that are the metallic rays.
Mhm.
So all these things are like they're at the tip of my field, but I don't feel like an expert on any of them necessarily. And luckily I have friends in my family, my soul family, like Tien, who are experts on things. So you always want to call in your smartest, wisest friends. For people that don't know Tien, Tien is a alchemist and a wizard. He lives in um, Vancouver, Canada, and he works with metals. We'll go into his story a little bit. He's a metalsmith. He does so many things, and is an amazing friend to have. And so the three things I called him on to talk about is to um, download for us some of his wisdom around. I see like the human. That picture that I think it's Da Vinci, the man as 5 pointed star, and like that energy is like in my like it just keeps being shown to me. The pentagon,
Mhm.
5 pointed star, and that. And then for me, I've grown up in the Indian, not personally, but like I've been trained in yoga and Ayurveda, and from the Indic culture, the five element theory has earth, air, water, fire, ether, right? And then when we look at the Chinese wisdom, the five element theory includes wood and metal. And like truth be told, for myself, like when you grow up speaking, I grew up speaking English. It's like trying to work with the wood and metal codes, or like it's like I'm learning a whole new language, and I don't feel totally fluent in that language. Like like baby, I'm in Spanglish, like broken covered. So
Yeah,
like I try to embody that wood and metal. So that's one of the primary one things I want
great.
to talk to you about is like
Yeah, awesome.
translate for us from the
Great. I'd love that. I love that conversation.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then so you want to just plunge in?
Well, continue a little bit more of
Okay.
your
And then
what you say.
so for that, I think also for the metallics. So I have worked a lot for the past several years with silver, gold, and platinum as light rays, and working with them, the energies of those metals as they come in through the sun and through light rays. But you have a much more like practical, tangible aspect of working with metallics. So this last, I think it was early November, it doesn't matter when, I was with my Andaras out in the by this beautiful waterfall, one of my power sites. And I had heard like to buy a lot more platinum things to like work with the codes that were coming through December and January, like that I need more platinum in my toolbox, if you will.
Okay.
And so I did that, and I bought a new platinum mandara, which is beautiful. But then the one, like sometimes, you use tools, they're just talismans, right? Whether it's
Yep.
like an acorn or a crystal or a,
Yep.
pendant, like it's all just something tangible to help you work the
Yep.
energy. So I had my fourth Andara that I had been using as the platinum, and the light codes came through, and it kind of projected this amazing dragon figure. I think I sent it
Mm.
to you. This was back in the
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
and so
A
that
couple weeks
dragon
ago.
said to me, I'm a Palladian dragon. And I was like, oh, okay. I don't have no idea what that means. And so I've been working with the palladium as a metal, just kind of unpacking that for myself. And I called you back then or messaged you to say, like, what do you know about palladium? And I also feel like there's a fifth I haven't found it yet, but there's going to be a 5th metallic that completes that 5-ray set, whether it's rhodium or what's one of the other theums, but that'll come through when it's supposed to come through. But the whole, the difference between palladium and platinum and like how to work with silver and gold. And so the metallic codes feel to me like they're coded in the 5-element theory that comes from China much more than the 5-element theory that I'm used to with the ether and the air. Does that make sense?
Got it. Yep. Yep.
Yay. So I called on the right wisdom person.
Yeah.
So,
I'm happy that I can be useful with my wisdom. Whatever wisdom there is in there.
well, there's a lot. So do you want to
let's see, how do we start with the 5 elements? Let's talk about the 5 elements right now, and maybe you can explain a little bit the Ayurvedic 5 elements. For me, so I'm a feng shui consultant as well, and I don't know if you know that, but
I didn't read that, but I hadn't put it into this. But of course, this is your landscape.
Yeah, so through the feng shui training, and I started to understand the 5 elements, but it was still kind of mystical for me. So it was still like information that I learned as opposed to embodying it or understanding how it actually works. But I still practiced it, and I understood the cycle of life. So how the whole point in feng shui and the elements is that if one is whole, including one self, this is the same elemental theory that Chinese doctors also utilize. So it's really fun because I hang out with my Taiwanese acupuncture doctor friend often, and sometimes we'll say things like, she recently said, yeah, I'm feeling like I'm not sure what, there's something. And I said, oh, you just need some wood chi output. And she and I can talk about that, but people will be like, what the hell are you talking about? Right? Be like, yeah, no, you just, you're water, and then you're already feeding your water with your metal. So now you need output. Mm-hmm. And the whole point of being able to speak like that is we understand how, as a human being and on planet Earth, we have 5 elements. If we break it really down to every single thing, and every culture is aware of this, right? Yeah. Every culture has 4 elements, 3 elements at least, and then depending on the cultural take on it. So of course we have our basics. Every culture, and you look at every culture, it's pagan spiritual awareness and earth elemental awareness. There's always fire. Mm-hmm. There's always earth. Mm-hmm. And there's always water. Mm-hmm. And all these 3 forms, in fact, were the original elements of planet Earth. Right. If you look at the beginning stages of planet Earth, 3.5 billion years ago, we had Earth in the form of rocks. Right. So meteor, rocks floating around in space, which is earth element, which is a tangible rock form, banging into another rock. And the velocity and the gravitational pull caused that to create so much heat that it turned into fire. So it turned into lava. Uh-huh. So you had earth, and then you had fire. Instead of like fire, flame, fire, you had lava fire, right? So still fire. Okay. And then at some point, some other force came around, some system floated around this molten lava ball, and that form created condensation, and then water entered Earth. Huh. So from there, you have your 3 basic elements: fire, water, earth. So that's the foundation of life. And as we look at it, honestly, you and I come from that. Every single thing that we have now has come from that. Yeah, so it's always very humbling, to remember, oh yeah, of course, I go back to dust and ashes, earth and water and all that, right? When I'm done, because I'm off the same source. And then after that, the different cultures, fast forward a couple billion years, yeah, fast forward up until like 200,000 years or maybe a little bit longer than that, we have humanoids now who then started, understanding, as very basic primal humans. We started understanding how to use fire, earth, water, and so those become our elements. And we also understand that every single thing on our planet comes from either fire, earth, water, trees, which is plants,
Hmm.
trees and plants, and wood, herbs, spices, all of that is all part of the wood element.
Hmm.
Anything that grows from the ground, we all know what a plant is, right? Any kind of plant form is a wood element.
Ah, okay.
And then with the Chinese philosophy, we have metal element, which comes out of the earth. So you mine your metals from the earth. Other cultures around the world had the added element of air, right? So in the First Nations culture, um, First Nations native folks of the North American continent, their four elements are fire, water, earth, and air.
Right. Interesting. I was going
So
to ask you that even when you were talking about the three come together, my brain
yeah,
was like, well, don't you need air to do the condensate of the clouds? But then I saw it as you were describing. Not really. Like
no, air is always just there.
the heat from that
Yeah,
pressure point just pulls the coldness of the, of
yeah,
space into water
yeah,
form. That's
yeah.
cool. But then,
Air is ether.
yeah.
Air is outside of physical form. So whether it's ether or universe, it's still air. Like
Right, right.
so if you think about it philosophically as well, right? It's a non-existent. So it's not a tangible object.
Gotcha. So in the five element theory, all of so educate me in my sometimes I say to people like TCM or traditional Chinese medicine,
Yep,
but that's not like the five element theory kind of
it
predates
is TCM.
separate and apart from that. They just use it in Chinese medicine, right?
Yeah,
So
they use it because those are tangible elements.
so how could what's the like what's the best phrase to use to describe them? Just like Chinese five element theory? Is that
Yeah, the five elements. Yeah,
okay?
we just call it the five elements.
Five
Yeah,
element.
yeah,
Cool.
yeah. So from there, we don't have air, unlike a lot of other peoples, because we're talking elements once again.
Right. So they're all tangible. That's a
And
cool.
element is anything you can see it, touch it, feel it,
Yeah.
taste it, and it's elemental, right? It's
Say more about
three-dimensional.
the metal. Is the
Yeah,
metal like from the depths of the earth, like nutrients and
yeah,
like it's
yeah.
all um like the source of
Very good. Yeah, it's the pure form of,
yeah.
whatever. It's the evolved form of the earth.
Huh.
So energetically, if you look at the different properties, so each element has its properties associated with it, right? So as we know, we say fire element. You know what fire element stands for.
Yeah.
What would it be?
I
What
think
would
so.
it
Oh,
stand for? The
fire. Yeah, like heat. Fire to me is very pointy. It's like a
hmm
triangle, like that triangulation of like it point it, but
yeah,
also
pokey.
big transformation. Like it takes something from like a piece of wood, or it takes something
Yeah,
from one form and completely transmutes it to another
yeah,
form. So it has
yeah. All those are the properties, but then also there's human properties, like there's emotional properties to fire, right?
yeah.
That we started associating. So what are some of the human emotional properties you would associate with fire?
Yeah, quick, but explosive,
Yeah,
sharp tongue, anger, like it just or just like
great. Yeah, yeah, awesome. So you got it right there. So every single element has its properties. So fire, as you say, there's anger, it's fast moving, it's action, it's courage, it's passion, and it's cutting. So
yeah.
those are the elements of fire. And then you move around the chart, you look at the others. Earth is like stabilizing, it's grounding, it's slower moving, it's dense, it's what they call grounding, because you build your home out of earth. You
Yeah.
don't build your home out of water,
Right.
right?
It would
And we're
be,
just talking human form. Yeah, we're
yeah,
not
yeah.
talking about the other folks that live with us on earth or the animals. We're just talking about the humans. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So can
So
you do
things
that
like
for
that.
metal? What's the qualities of metal, please?
Metal is an interesting one because property wise, metal, even if it's a tangible form, has the properties of air. So I will say, I will associate air and metal to be the same element.
Huh.
So we talk of metal as the element that is evolved from earth. The things we assign to metal element is higher consciousness, higher awareness and spirit, spiritual awareness, psychic abilities.
Huh.
You understand, right? You're seeing why?
Yeah.
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 It's also about travels and wisdom, knowledge. But you see, understand why? Because it's an evolved form of earth.
Like it's almost like they're fluids, metals,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it's the higher expression of earth. And if me, human form, is earth, the higher expression of earth Tien is my spirit, my higher consciousness.
I'm laughing at myself just for a moment. Like I'm taking notes as if I can't go back and watch this video. It's good. That's how
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah, of course. No, I understand because we retain information
yeah, yeah. I
by
love that.
seeing, hearing, writing, speaking. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's metal. And then if you look around all and everything else, planetary, I would say all the metals, all the elements are planetarily the same. Why? Because Earth is Earth, whether it's here on homegrown First Nation soil here, of the Musqueam people here. A crystal is a crystal, whether it's here, it's in New Zealand or China and Scotland, still a bloody crystal, right? Because these are all the ruling elements of planet Earth. So the properties are all the same.
Huh.
If you look at the value of the elements in India, so for example, you can tell me a little bit about the Ayurvedic versions, because I don't know Ayurvedic medicine. So what would Earth stand for?
Earth. Yeah, it's steadiness, strength,
Yep.
endurance. So I'll do that. So the 5 elements in the Ayurvedic system are earth, water, fire, air, and then ether or
Yep.
space.
Yep.
So earth is yeah, that stable, steady, dependability, endurance, but yeah, slow moving,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then just like in both systems have their, there's the balance trait and then there's the deficient trait or the excessive trait, right? You have,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. In Chinese medicine, similar. It's depletion or excessive.
Yeah, right. It's like
Too much or too little.
exactly right.
Yeah.
So water element is, and so earth is associated with smell also in that system, or that, that in square shape.
Yeah. The shape is square. Very good. Same.
Water is mobility, fluidity, shape shifting, change, takes the shape of any container you put it in. It goes, emotional content is in that form, and the shape is hexagon. And then so too much of it's like the relationships kind of go in like that, one-on-one quality goes in with water.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Fire is what I said before, is from the Ayurveda,
Mm-hmm.
that upward draft, and water and earth are both like they're the heavier elements that move downward. Fire is the first, like the apex, which moves energy up and out, and or not out, just up, and then air. So fire rules digestion and assimilation too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then the air element is breath. Um, Star is the shape. It's about dispersing, but also it's dispersing and spreading, but also contacting and touching. Like it's the sense there.
Interesting. Okay.
So I'd go back to, so for water, the sense is taste. Fire, it's actually for sight. But
Mm-hmm.
so air, it's interesting how air spreads things out, but it also is
Mm-hmm.
like what touches between you and me. It's like a connection point for air. And then ether. So I usually explain ether using like the visual of the globe. So the earth is the earth, like you described, and the water is the oceans and rivers. The fire could be the molten lava at the center. The air is the atmosphere around, and then ether is everything else. It's like the shape, so it has the quality of
I see.
and holding space for everything else.
I understand. Okay.
Almost like, I don't want to say it's inert, but it has that, like, it's just a space. It's the can you define something with itself? A space is a space holder, but it's like holds the envelope that all things exist in.
Yep. Yep. I understand.
So like
Okay.
creation, one might call it a creation void space or that.
Sure. Excellent. Okay.
It's
Awesome.
interesting. I love this conversation because to me, I feel like, I don't know many languages. I know you know more, but it's like when I learned Spanish is my secondary language. And it's like your conversational, like kindergarten level, but I feel like, but I'm not like fluent, in other 5 element theories. So. But I love when I had read about metal and wood, like the metal things that stood out for me were the that it's fall time. Like I think of wood as like spring element and metal as fall, but metal rules the lungs and the immune system and globally that seems like we're going through a whole big amount of metal.
Yep. There's a lot of metal element. And do you know that the Lunar New Year, we are entering into a metal ox?
Are we? Oh,
yeah.
That makes sense to me. When is that? February 8th? Like
February 13th.
13th. Okay. Yeah. Oh yeah, for the moon, right?
Yeah.
It's always on the full moon.
Yeah. Yeah. It's always on the full moon, new moon of the around end of January, February is the new moon. Yeah.
So the ox is a metal shape?
It's an ox that's metal, so it's a metal ox. So the different, I don't know how that calculation is made, that part of Chinese astrology, I don't know. But every animal in the astrology will have a certain element that rules it. So yeah, no, some great energetic spheres as a result are unfolding because of that. But that's a different conversation. So
spheres, like globes?
Sphere, no, not necessarily spheres, like dimensions and
gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah. But the 5 elements, I want to continue with the 5 elements. So one of the philosophies as well is that every human being, all of us, our homes, our wellness, our bodies is defined by all the 5 elements being present. So the whole point is to ensure that all 5 elements are nicely in equilibrium. So you have sufficient wood, sufficient fire, sufficient earth, like that. And a lot of human beings are depleted in lots of elements, and lots of human beings are excessive in lots of elements. So, people who are very, very angry and irritable have too much fire, things like that, right? Or people who are very sluggish and lazy and unmotivated, or, not creative, are very heavy in either earth or wood, or water. People who are highly demanding and high maintenance and very aggressive with their speaking and their behavior are excessive wood and elements. So those are just different factors that we just pay attention to. So when we look at our wellness, and if you're very in touch with yourself, you will know, oh my God, there's just way too much fire in my body right now, or whatever. Then you know how to just kind of balance it out with the right kind of plants and just an awareness of it, right? And how to make yourself come back to equilibrium with that awareness. You'd be like, oh, okay, I'm really angry. I better go and like spend a little bit more time, feeling grounded, or spend a little bit more time being more appreciative and things like that, so you can soften that fire.
Well, I keep, as you talk, and I've seen it before, like how they put them in the shape of the pentagon or the 5-point star, and the moving energy between those vertices.
Very right. Yeah, very, very correct. Yeah, because the point is actually one element feeds the other element.
So that's the
so for example
around.
Yeah, so it feeds. Yeah.
And then the
fire, one becomes the next, and that's the cycle of life. It goes on and on. So The wood becomes fire. So for example, uh, wood feeds fire, right? You throw the wood into the
Right.
fire. Now the fire can burn. The fire then becomes earth because after the fire is done, it becomes ashes and earth. From the earth, you can derive and find metal. And then for some reason, metal becomes water. I don't quite know where. I understand why, but I don't really actually know why.
When I see it, it's almost like this is perfect segue because I was going to ask you to talk about your jewelry, your metalsmithing. But is it like under the fire with under the influence of heat, it becomes
Yeah.
more liquid?
Yeah, it becomes molten. Yeah.
Huh.
There's something about that. And then once it goes to water, then water goes to earth, wood, right? So water feeds wood, wood feeds fire, fire feeds earth feeds metal, metal feeds water, and the life goes on.
I
So
love
that's
it.
the cycle of life. Yeah, it's
I'm
really, really great.
picturing the tree roots pulling up the
Yeah,
water.
exactly. It's all connected. And for me, what's fascinating that I actually want to add here is that I kind of started understanding that like more scholastically, not as inherently or automatically when I was studying the feng shui. But when I started reading more about fairies, like more of the Celtic pagan traditions, because this sweet little fairy person came to me one day at an event I was selling my work at, and she just pointed to me. She says, "You are a fairy person." I was like, "What's that?" This was like 12 years ago or so, right? She's like, "You're an elf type person. You're some magic kind of person." I was like, "What's that?" She says, "Go read this book." So I did. I went and got this really cute little picturesque and perfect kind of reading book. I don't read manuals, I fall asleep, but it full of pictures and lots of folklore and it was so cute because I when I read that, suddenly everything just started joining. All of it started making sense because here was hearing the Western philosophy of elements through the fairies, right? Because they call the fairies the elementals.
Right. And so they have like the animal fairies and the woodland fairies and the
Yeah.
water
And
fairies.
what and yeah, it got clear why. Oh my God. Suddenly it was just so brilliant. Suddenly everything made sense elemental wise. And then I finally understood why we have wood and why most cultures don't have wood. Because most cultures include the wood element in the earth
The
element.
earth. Right, right.
Yeah. But for us, um, we separate them because they're very different properties. The wood element is a living tree with roots that are breaking the earth. The earth is the same piece of thing. You look at it a million years later, it's still the same piece of thing.
I love
Crystal is still the same.
so
So of course, properties wise, it's very different.
totally different.
Yeah. So that's why we split it up because
And
wood is like,
more like a place of honor for the plant kingdom too, right? Like of like
yeah,
they show
yeah,
up on the chart
yeah,
rather than
yeah. So it's very cool. I love that once again, I just loved it when everything just went ping, 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 ping. I was like, oh my God, I was like awake for days because I was getting all this. I guess it was a download, right? All the information started clicking. And then
oh,
from that point, everything around elemental theory, I just got it. I just got it. It was so great.
like frolicking in the wood with the fallen trees and moss and mushrooms and yeah.
Absolutely. I understood the hobbits. I understood the Lord of the Rings. I understood why Gandalf, why me as a wizard, I'm like a Gandalf. I understood why the hobbits live in a shire. I understood why the dwarfs harvest crystals and were shining them. It just all of it just made sense.
Cool. I love that.
It's so
That's
great. Yeah, it's so
flip
great.
on
Yeah.
so great. So you've one of the skills you bring to the table or you've honed over decades, right? Is your metal smithing. So can we like wax to metallics and how when I had that palladium, I should be able to say it. Palladium, like kind of like you said with the fairies, and I'm like, oh, what is palladium? Like you get these like sparks, right? And then like your idea, then you have to download them and like
Yeah.
find stuff out. So I contacted you right away, and I was like, "What's palladium, and what does it work, and how's it different?" And so, and the things you said about the silver and the gold and the human body, and like I was like, "Oh yeah, that's part of what sparked." I was like, "I need to get Tien on. I need to
Yeah, yeah,
get
yeah,
the word out from his magical
yeah,
words of these metallic alchemy situations. So
yeah.
is that a good segue?
Totally, totally. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
Ask
can we,
whatever questions you have.
yeah, so metal, so you want to tell people a little bit, like you're a metalsmith. Tien creates beautiful pieces, jewelry, but like portal pieces, I call them a little bit. They're like, I feel like you can walk through each one. Like whether
Right? Totally.
uh I have a beautiful,
Yeah.
I should have worn it today. I was not that put together.
Yeah, I am a goldsmith technically, and if you want to just look at Earth kind of languaging in terms of profession or what we do, I am a goldsmith. So I make jewelry icons out of gold and silver, and I've been a goldsmith for about 26 years. Um, I only recently started working with gold in the past 10 years, and I had been working with silver primarily for about 20 years. Then the gold elements started just making their way to me. Um, and the work I build, can go from very ordinary, easy, ready to wear pieces to, elaborate. What do I have today? Incidentally, of course, I had to know what was the piece to wear today, but of course, it's the 5-pointed star.
Do you really? Come on.
Yep. I actually have the 5-pointed star in the triangle, in the circle, in the earth. So we
Wow.
have the fire and the earth and the metal,
Nice.
the elements right there, right? In the squaring the circle, but that's a 5-pointed star. So
That's
this one I built just like probably in the fall. And so I will build power pieces. I build a lot of custom work, whether it be love bands, wedding bands, anything like that. And also I do specialize in a lot of transforming older pieces into something new. So that's something I love doing because I love the world of being able to transform energetic fields into a whole new dimension. And in ordinary talk, I love like transforming something that's old, whether it's an old way of being, old way of thinking, to something new. So the art of transformation is really what being a smith is about as well, where you transform a piece of metal from its existing state into something new. So that's the work that I do as an alchemist. And the wonderful thing about the elements, and just to with silver and gold, if you look at a lot of alchemy conversations, silver and gold are the two highest metals in alchemy. They will include a lot of other metals like iron, copper, tin, lead in their formulas as well. But silver and gold, especially gold, is deemed the purest metal. So gold is always given the properties of purity. So gold stands for purity because it is not in itself alchemically. When you work with gold, when I work with gold, gold doesn't change. That's why it doesn't tarnish, it doesn't change color, it doesn't do anything except just be pure. That's why it also has a very high monetary value. Yes. Silver is a very different alchemical and or properties to it. Silver is always changing. So one of the elements that gold is aligned with is the sun. So that's why the golden sun, the pureness and the heat and the fire of the sun, the wealth of the sun, the life-giving force of the sun, things like that. It's associated with the sun. And its alchemical symbol is a circle with a dot in the middle, which is also the same symbol that denotes the sun.
cool.
So that is that because it's pure, it's never changing like the sun, right? The sun will always just be the sun, just like that. So where silver is always changing, and silver is transformative. So silver has a property of potentiality. That's why silver, when we wear silver, it changes with us. Sometimes it will turn black, sometimes it will turn white. It goes to sleep when you put it in your cabinet. It turns black, and then you put it on, it'll turn white. So it's always living and breathing with our human body, and our human body really likes silver. Silver also has the is the properties of silver is about potentiality. So it's about bringing out the best. It's about, changing something into something better. And prior to refrigeration, silver was used as an antibacteria. So it was thrown into buckets of milk to preserve it.
Oh,
Silver elements, you'll take silver colloidal water
yeah, yeah.
because it's antibacterial property.
Right.
So what it's doing as an antibacterial property, silver is always, once again, transforming something into the next.
Oh,
So it's moving something from base to higher value.
cool. I've never heard that about silver. I love that.
Yeah, and so silver, and in fact, the goldsmith, when I was still working a lot in silver, said to me, she says, "How I have no idea how you guys work with silver. It is so hard to work with." And I know that as a smith, working with silver in its existing form, I don't melt and pour silver. I work with silver in its existing form, which means it's already been, let's say it's already been milled into a shape, and then I will work with it. I'll take the flame, you know, I'll take the flame and the torch, and I'll work with it the way it is. So when you melt it down, you are basically killing the metal, pouring it into a mold, or you're killing the metal, turning it back to nothing, liquid molten form, pour it into a mold, and from there it takes new shape, it takes new life. Yes. So that's a whole different process of transforming. But when you're working with silver, and let's just show you its form it's in. So it's already been shaped into this. But if I'm going to work with basic sheet and wire and turn it into something like this,
Ooh, that's cool.
right?
Yeah.
I am not melting it and then using a mold. I'm actually using the fire, cutting, soldering, finishing it while it's still alive. Do you get that, right? So in
Yeah.
order for the joints to solder to each other, the metal has not died because it hasn't melted into a blob. It is still alive. What I'm doing is I'm adding fire to shift its molecular makeup. So we're now just talking, oh, we're talking chemistry makeup. We're talking science, right? So
Right.
alchemy is magical science, magical chemistry. So we're talking the science version of it is that you got to open up and alter the molecular makeup of the metal. And so it's got to be heated to the same temperature. And then because the molecules are now open, you can add a solder, and the new solder will seep into the opened molecule of the metal, and together they will bond. So technically, scientifically, technically, chemically, that's what soldering means. So
Ah,
what you're actually energetically doing is you're opening up the energy with fire, because fire transforms, opening up the energy of the metal while it's still alive, you haven't killed it,
mhm.
and making it go into a new form. So what's challenging about working with silver is that one has to be very clear in their space, because it is so it absorbs my energy, because as I said, it turns black when I don't wear it, and when I wear it, it turns white. I'll ask new students of smithing who will say to me, why is it I cannot even make a very simple joint of a small little wire, put two ends together, and it will not even solder? It's so basic. I said, yeah, I get it. What were you feeling when you were trying to solder it? Oh, I was feeling irritated. I said, that's why.
Huh. Wow.
Your energetic sphere has to be pure and clear.
So it's, I'm gonna say, is it like a mirror a little bit silver, like a feedback?
Yes.
So you'll be
That's what's powerful about silver. And that's why the goldsmith said to me, "What? I have no idea how you guys work with silver. It is so hard to work with, because you got to honestly be so zen.
huh. So
You
I've made
got to
an
be
assumption
clear."
in my head because you had talked to us. You had said that the sun is the like for the gold. I'm assuming silver goes with the moon, but I want to clarify, make sure. And then
Perfect.
you told me the symbol was for the gold was a circle with a dot, the silver, a sliver moon,
Yes.
or what's
Excellent. You
yeah?
see, it all makes sense, right?
I was like, that's what I was assuming, but so it's a
Yeah.
loop,
Well, you assume right.
but
It is then associated with the moon, and the the shape of the moon alchemically is a sliver of the moon. That's probably where the word silver comes from.
right? Slivers.
Um, and and the shape, the alchemical shape or alchemical symbol for silver is a crescent moon.
That's so awesome.
So awesome.
And so that what you were talking about is like how the sun and moon work together. The moon is really just a reflection of the sun.
Mm-hmm.
So like the silver
Mm-hmm.
as a smith.
It's a reflection of me as the smith, right? Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And so what is always fascinating is that, and as I, as I continue in my business as a smith, I'm always evolving as well. My basic technique is fine, no problem, right? So I can be all like la 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 la. As long as I'm happy, it doesn't matter. I don't need to be that focused on doing it. I'll be focused so I don't burn myself and do stupid things, right? But I don't need to be as intentional because my space is well practiced and clear. And so the work I have to do with people's pieces, if I'm building something, I have to be clear about it. So I have to feel good. I have to be completely aligned with this project. So it challenges me to be very clear about my business. I cannot take a job because I feel like I have to. I cannot take a job that I'm not interested in because all that adds to my emotional space, right? My energetic space. My energy about it has to be clear. So it has to be neutral, clear to joy. If I am anything less than that, it's not going to work. It'll be a horrible mess. So, some once in a while, I will run into a client whom might have stuff around the project. So they might be a little bit being stingy about it. They might not be happy about the price point. And so, and then as a result, because I'm a human being, I might get upset about that. I might start like having my own judgments about them and my own stories about them. And then my being annoyed and pissed off about it, that I'm not getting paid what I'm worth, all of that stuff, right? I have to be so clear when I go to work on the project that I actually set all of that aside and just be present. If I don't do that work, the piece will not take.
And what about the do you like if it's my grandmother's brooch or something like it passed on and that
Mhm.
you didn't have the person that's your client didn't have a good relationship with the person, like
Yeah.
all that stuff comes through on the pieces, I bet, right?
Yes, but that's what's beautiful about it is that it can be altered through fire.
Yeah. So like,
So all that stuff is gone. When you put the flame to it, it's
oh,
gone. It gets transformed. That's why people love my heirloom resetting
so
because
do
it's
you
a
notice?
brand new piece.
But then I wonder, I'm sure I can feel it. Like it ripples out and changes the relationship of those family members.
It
Oh,
changes it. Yeah, it brings it to a much higher consciousness, higher awareness. I did this project recently over Christmas. I haven't posted it, but I'll probably post it tomorrow actually on my pages. So but it was a silver piece. So it wasn't gold, a silver piece of a client whose mom used to wear the piece. So her Goldsmith boyfriend, partner, had made a piece with her and his initials, and the piece broke. And so when my client found me, heard of me, she came and she thought that I was just going to solder them back together. She said she'd had that done before. And I said, look, like everything, metal fatigues as well. So it's already been soldered quite a few times at that joint. Can you imagine what it is you had a round circle and then it broke, right? Because over repeated bending, it fatigues, it will break. So now you have two half circles. And what we're doing is we're trying to make them go back by adding solder and heating it. But it's already a full circle that's broken, just like any broken bone it's a little bit a little bit compromised, right? So it will break again if the pressure is put there too much. So I said to her, I can solder it again, but it'll probably break again. What I can do is I can completely transform it. I'll build with a band behind it so it's really nice and stable. It's solid. It's got a backing, and it just got completely beautifully transformed into a ring that still had the original shape of mom's ring, but now had a very powerful band that really supported the whole thing, right? And energetically, she was completely aligned. She was so happy. She was completely aligned with what I was going to charge her. So there was nothing there, and it was full trust. She didn't keep like messaging me and then what, and then make sure it's going to be like this. And because there are people who do that, right? And I have to tell them, look, you have to trust me. You can't keep shoving upset at me and distrust, because then I got to do even more work to clear your stuff from my space. You
Price is going
understand?
up every time. Yes.
I have to keep adding that into the proposal, right? Be like, every time you try and bug me about it, I'm gonna have to charge you out the $50 because you just keep throwing, lack of trust, which means I have to do the work to clear that as I do the piece. So she was in great space. This one, she completely trusted me, and I knew it was so cute because her mom's partner who built that ring was present while I was building it and transforming it. He was also a goldsmith, right? And she said that herself because they've both passed on. She said that, oh my God, I can feel like he was so happy with what you did with this.
Aww.
I said, yeah, I know. I felt it. It was a very easy build as a result. It was easy, and you can tell because everybody was aligned,
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah. So that's the beautiful properties of the metal. And that's what the metal teaches. The metal has been silver has been my first Zen master because it taught me to be present. And if I was not going to be happy, I had to just leave it. I had to make it ensured that I be happy and or in a neutral space whenever I did my work, which is the lesson for life. If you're going to do anything, do it out of joy. Do it in joy. Otherwise, you're not honoring the person you're with. You're not honoring the process. You're not honoring the meal that you're preparing. You're not honoring your moving of your home. You're not honoring your body. Same. It's the lesson that that transcends, right?
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
I love all that.
It's so good. I love it.
So, do you work with platinum very much? Or
No, platinum is something. Platinum, palladium, rhodium. No, they are foreign metals to me, and they're odd. Excuse me, I don't relate to them very well. I have a white gold piece right now. That's a I do work with a caster, to cast. So when we have pieces, bits and pieces, and an old piece that we want to transform entirely into a new shape, that's not by, so we have to build a mold and cast it. So I do have my own guys who do that. And then I will do all the finishing and the re-energizing of it. Right. So all this, I'll do the final setting, the finish, polish, and other
so when
forms. But
you said white gold, is white
yeah.
gold, part platinum? Is that
Yeah. So white gold. So this is palladium, not platinum. This in its raw form. Okay. So raw form metal is ugly as hell.
that's palladium right there?
That is white gold and palladium.
Palladium. Oh, okay. Cool.
Unfinished. Okay. So unfinished metal is unattractive. Just like this was an unfinished silver cast that I cast into gold. Actually, I'll show you the piece now. She's picking it up after this, but I'll show you the finished gold piece because it's crazy good. But because you're airing this after she picks it up, it will be fine. So this was the cast that I built in silver because we wanted to cast it into an 18K gold. Okay, and then here's the so I built it out of silver, and then it's so ugly and stuff, and then we cast it into 18K gold.
Whoa.
And then I set an aquamarine And then of course, do all the finishing. It's not just like it comes back to you and it's in great shape. It's ugly and gross and
Yeah.
you know
Wow, that's cool.
black, but oh my god, this is such a beautiful piece with the beautiful aquamarine. So that's what that version of it can do. And I can also do that, right? That's a whole different a whole different alchemical property. But once it's cast back into its new form, it's fine. All the magical work that I do when I'm being with the metal is still there. Because I'll still sometimes have to heat it up and add flame and transform the metal again. So I'll still get to infuse it with my own energy, right? But the palladium, this one is white gold with palladium, which makes it 19 karat. Traditionally, white gold is yellow gold mixed with nickel. That's why I don't like white gold. It's mixed with nickel because the chemical properties of nickel turns the yellow into white.
Ah, okay.
That's why they use nickel. I'm sure over the years, centuries, they experimented with different forms and couldn't turn it white, but only nickel could. And it's weird because nickel is a cheap base metal, but it's the only one that turns it white. And then they recently, in the past 20 years or so, discovered that palladium will turn it white as well. And palladium is a much higher price point metal, and it will still be hard. Because the beauty of white gold is that it is a hard metal. It's not like yellow gold that's softer.
That's interesting. One thing that like really stood out for me when we conversed about this earlier a couple months ago was I asked if you use palladium or platinum, and you were like, you said that those metals are very sharp and they're
Yeah,
not very malleable, and that they
yeah,
didn't
they're
work
hard.
like with the human body. So
Yeah,
we talked about that they're really used more for like catalytic converters and manufacturing and like
yeah,
things that you need to be able to withstand pressure and
yeah,
heat. They have a hardness that
yeah.
wouldn't sit well around a neck or on an arm. Or
No, no.
so
That's
that's
why those are newer metals.
hmm.
Only newer metals in the past 100 years when, since the Victorian era, where we actually had manufacturing iron work and metals in the steel industry that could now do that work. Because by hand, really not. I could, and this is the first time I'm working with a 19K white gold palladium. And I told the guy, I said, I'm not looking forward to this because I just have to be honest with you. This is hard. I have no idea how many tools this will break.
Huh.
Yeah, so I don't know. So I started sawing it just to get a sense, and it's not so bad. It's not as bad as I was afraid of, right? But titanium is another one that can only be cut with, and that's a new metal, can only be cut with laser. No hand anything can be manipulated. And so because it cannot be hand manipulated, it is not, if you think about it, it's not related to our body.
Right.
Right? Because
Particle. Yeah.
it's cold. I understand this just intrinsically, but I don't know if people understand that, right? If you can't mold it with your hand, it's not part of our chemical and physical and physiological makeup because you can't do that. It's just weird.
So maybe
Right?
like coat the space shuttle with it because it has to withstand massive
Yeah,
pressure.
it has to withstand that kind of heat and speed and pressure for sure. And or even technology, right? You look at our cell phones and you look at our devices, those are elements in there. And if you look at it, like you can't make this, you can't make this into a pillow that's going to be soft and molding for my body. Because these elements are not related to our physical body. Right? So that's that whole world of like the metals and how it fits with the human body. That's why it's uncomfortable. That's all it is. It's uncomfortable to wear titanium. Palladium is kind of uncomfortable, things like that, right? The harder metals. Yeah. So that's why when you ask me about palladium and and what was the other one?
Platinum.
Platinum and palladium. I find it hard to work with. I have never worked with platinum. I've only worked with it in terms of cutting it to remove diamonds from, so that I could melt them into a new form or whatever, right? Set them in gold instead. Um, but I don't like do the same like I showed you, solder a palladium onto another palladium. I've never done that and I have no interest in doing that because it feels foreign to me and it's sharp. And also I describe it kind of like it's itchy. When you say sharp and pokey, that's
Yeah.
probably what it's. If you looked at the molecular makeup
Yeah.
of, if I'd be curious to go see, right? You too, as a science
Right.
nerd,
What it
right?
looks like.
Look at under a microscope. What is the molecular makeup?
Is it like
And it
sand?
feels like it's pokey and itchy,
Yeah. Oh, that's fascinating. If we
So
go back to
fascinating.
that, like I think of skin and like touch and that element of, that like being in balance.
Exactly. Yeah.
So from like working with them as light rays, the gold is like the like source, just like flow, that like you said,
Yeah.
like some people
Yeah.
associate like the unicorn energy, like that, like
Pure. It's a pure energy.
or
It's
like the whole
purity.
rainbow, the pot
Yeah.
of gold and the whole rainbow codes spring from the gold. To me,
Yeah.
when I make silver, it has a much more star, galactic,
Ah.
almost like rather than like oozing from a crack in the earth, it's like sort of coming down and in.
Yes.
If that makes sense.
Yes.
Um,
I understand. I understand. Yeah.
and then the platinum, like it took me a few years to get familiar with it or working with it, but a lot of times the platinum ray or the platinum light ray is used to insulate or coat or like
Ah.
mitigate a little bit, like it like for instance, like light workers used it after the Fukushima, like to like to for radiation to like dampen, quelch, coat, soothe the
I understand. That's platinum.
yeah. So palladium,
Okay.
I'm still like, I don't know, still unpacking that. I haven't used it much. It's really new to me, and I'm not quite sure what I'm going to use it for. So it's kind of fun to be in that creation space.
The light suddenly changed, when you said that.
Yeah, it
Did
did.
you notice? Like it suddenly got bright.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's maybe that gives an answer right there.
It's to brighten. Palladium is to brighten. That's what I just got.
Ah, cool.
You got that?
Yes.
That's why they add the palladium. That's why palladium can be added to yellow gold to brighten it, to turn it white. So the point of, so if the palladiums are now, so if palladium is showing up, it is here to brighten humanity.
I love that.
You got that, right?
That's perfect. Yes.
Yeah.
That's
And
the whole reason we had it, not the whole reason we had the conversation, but that's what I needed to hear. Thank you.
yeah, yeah. Um,
And
yeah, because we have stifled ourselves, we have darkened ourselves, and that's why 2020 was crucial, because it was the ash, I'll call it the ash phase. Yes. So as we know, the dragons were all flying around with all the fire for the past few years, lots of fire going on planet Earth. And then, of course, if you look at the cycle of life once again, fire will turn everything into ash. So I see 2020 as the ash year, where things crumbled. All our structures fell down. Not really, because humans are like resilient as hell and insistent on not dying. Yes. So they'll keep on fighting to keep their structures going. That's why it will keep going for a while. Those of us who've ascended, we're in a different realm. We're like, la la la, it's all fine, whatever, right? They can go and struggle with their fallen systems or struggle to keep rebuilding their fallen system from the same structure. Whereas those of us who are aware, the point of it was to kill it off, and now we build from brand new, not from fallen structures, but brand new.
oh, that's like a breath of fresh air. I love that.
Yes,
I'll
that's
have
why
to.
palladium is here to brighten all of that.
Okay, and I was not going to mention this because I keep myself out of political spheres of things. So like anytime you mention things, but this ray came through to me during the USA election.
Mm-hmm.
And so the like right that first week in November is when I had that moment. Nothing to do with and I don't like, it's just like actors up on a stage and blah, 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 those guys, blah, blah, blah. But the atomic number for palladium showed itself to me, and it's 46. So it was like when the United States elected their 46th president, it had this palladium ray came in through
Great.
the election. And to
Great.
a lot of people, I know there's a lot of people that don't agree with this, but the Brighton humanity, like I don't know if you've heard about your southern neighbors, but we're kind of in a little bit of a, the USA is in a little bit of a, you know, spiral of whatever, that all
Yeah,
that
and
other.
it has to happen. It has to happen, right?
Yeah. The
If you,
ash. The ash has been
yeah,
apparent down here in the US, shall we say.
yeah, it has to happen.
So it was interesting to me. I just noted, because somebody was like, oh, the 46th president, and whether you care about that person or not, it's like, oh, that cycle of like a new, I was like, so there's something to it, that 46th president and the palladium ray came through on the same week.
Interesting. Fantastic. Yeah.
But
Yeah, no, I wouldn't be surprised. I would, it's all related, it's all together, right? So, yeah, totally. Very awesome.
so when the dragons, do dragons have any metallic associations? Like, are there
They're
silver
all,
dragons and
yeah, they all have their own element. Um, yeah, they can be water dragons, fire dragons, earth, metal. So they're all whatever, just like all the other animals,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Well, this will be a great segue because I wanted to mention your cards, but this will be a good. I have
Ah,
some dragon cards, which like I love them and they inspire me occasionally, but they have like the silver dragon, the gold dragon, that particular person brought through. But I was like, I wonder if they have, they like this dragon from Sirius and that dragon from Orion, and that's just like their vernacular, right? But so that just propped into me. I was like, I wonder if like the metallics have some special, not breed of dragon, but are there dragons that work with the metal element?
I don't know too much, because I the dra dragon as an element is mystical. It is always transformative. So what the dragons do is they herald in new vibrations and new frequencies. So that's what they do. They come in with it, right? So, and in Chinese philosophy, um, the dragons are the royalty. The dragons are the emperors and the kingdom, the representative of the power, right? So, um, and in all different mythologies, I always like to call it history, legend, folklore, myth. It's all the same thing.
Yeah, right. It's a parable story.
Yeah, it's a thing. It's history if it's long enough, and then it becomes a legend if it's even more longer than that, and then becomes a folklore when you don't really know when it happened, and it becomes a myth when you no longer believe it.
Ah, I love that.
So I call it the same: history, legend, folklore, myth. Where the dragons were the you have the history, legend, folklore, myth of the dragons being the original grid builders of the planet, laying the ley lines. You have the dragons who were hiding in the mountains, with the Hobbit stories. The dragons of the First Nations people, I'm not really sure very much else about them, but they have them and they're more water element. So it really depends which part, whereabouts on Earth. It could be partly whereabouts on Earth these peoples. Oh, just came to me. So it depends where the dragon was located on Earth. And that's the element it took on for those people. So the dragon tends to have more of a water element for the First Nations people of Canada. Sorry, of North America. What do you call the First Nations people as an American? They call them Native Americans. Is that what they call them?
Yeah, that's the cleaned up Indians,
Okay.
like Native Americans.
So okay, so basically the indigenous First Nations people of this land mass, yes, I believe that their version of the dragon tends to be more water element. And then there's different elements, of the dragon in different parts of the world. So it has that's based on where it's located.
I love that. That's beautiful. So for me, like this association with the palladium and the dragon, it could just, when you said that heralding, like it's maybe that dragon like drew that information to me.
Yeah.
It doesn't
Yeah.
mean that he or she, that dragon, is associated with that element. It's just like they were the herald or like the bringer.
Yeah, they will bring in the new information. So they're here to bring in new information at any point. And if you look at the element that it's bringing in, that's the lesson there.
Okay.
So you just look at the element. So if your element that was coming in was metal, right?
Yeah.
And it's a white metal, palladium, and then you got more information and more detail about that white metal light.
Yeah.
That's the information it's bringing in. And at some point, it could bring in some other, it could bring in some green moss. Who knows?
Right. Great.
And then you look at green. What's green? Oh, green's a wood element. Moss is a plant element. Moss is soft and squishy. Moss is protective. Oh, it's bringing in the heralding in an era of rebirth, regrowth, things like that.
I love, that's perfect.
Yeah.
So I can, my little human brain can stop associating that with like, it's a as a delivery system and messenger. And rather
it's
than
a messenger. Yeah, it's a writer, it's a messenger, it's a
rather
being
than
that
the
brings it.
palladium being like attached to or affixed to that dragon. It doesn't.
Yeah, no.
Okay, cool.
The dragons just bring gifts of whatever.
Yeah. Oh, I needed that information too.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of it, us humans and our funny brains, right? We're just always trying to make sense of things, but yeah, I always have to come down to it's all about energy and it's all about emotions. And there's no meaning to any of it. What we've done is we put our own meaning with our brains that are very creative, and we've given it meanings. At some point, it was just an energetic sphere. Because who knows, maybe even the dragons aren't necessarily, they probably are not three-dimensional in any way. It's an energy form.
Right. Totally.
Everything is an energy form, right?
Right. And that, they, one theory of like some of the folklore of dragons are like cosmic streams, or like, maybe when they were like tails of comets in the sky. And they become like personified, if you will. Or
it's always personified. Yeah, everything is personified. That's why all the conversations around spirituality is all personified.
Well, we put it into a interface that we can work with as a human, right? Like there has to be some intermediary, like, because the grandeur of it is so magnificent that it's hard to like take in from our.
It's hard to understand. Yeah.
Oh, you're a gift to the world, my friend Tien.
Oh, well, thank you. That's awesome.
Have been, like, read this, like watched us, and they want to like now take their grandmother's brooch and transform it into something new. Or how do they find you, and how can they like enlist your services? And
I'm the only Tien Neo Eamas in the world. So you can just like write my name there, or just send a link to Tien the Wizard. So I do have my online shop, which is a very small collection of my work, because I do a whole variety, right? So tienthewizard.com is how you find me, and just get a sampling. Otherwise, I am on Instagram, Tien the Wizard, I believe, and or Tien Neo Eamas. I just use those two, Tien Neo Eamas and or Tien the Wizard. So just Google that and you'll find me somehow, and just fire me a message.
Yeah, you can. I'll put stuff in the links and all that too.
Yeah. I'm easy to find. I'm the only one in the world with that name, so
that's a special thing, right there.
It's not like a John Smith,
I love it. So that I was looking back. So the Lunar New Year is the metal ox. Thank you for. I hadn't looked that up yet. Or that piece. That's that even adds another piece of the puzzle to my metallic.
More metal,
Like, I'm blessed to have them with my family and whatever. But my husband asked, like, should I get you something for Christmas? Do you want anything? So I was like, I didn't bring it today. I'll show it to you later. But I ordered myself a new singing bowl.
Nice, metal,
But I was like, I'll get a new metallic bowl and for the crystal bowl, and it was like just a lot bigger and more awesome and magnificent than I had pictured. And it's like,
that's awesome.
It's like hard to hold up with one hand. Like I was like, ooh,
yeah.
Biceps and triceps from it. So I'm excited to play with this new metallic action in lots of different ways. So
excellent.
Play together again sometime. This is
Yeah, yeah.
such an uplifting, amazing conversation, and I appreciate you.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you, sweetie. So great always being with you.
Thanks for anyone who's and everyone who's watching this and here with us. And if you have questions,
Yeah,
link us up. We're here.
please.
We're
Yeah,
available.
please message us. Yeah.